How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com. This video is about an interesting article that I discovered about a hidden survival bunker that was discovered in Utah after some wildfires had burned some forest land down. There were some firefighters out there fighting the fire, and they came across an illegal, I mean, it is illegal because it was on public land, but it was some kind of secretive bunker that this guy had built under a cabin, and apparently he'd had multiple of these. The cabin had completely burned down, and so all that's left was the bunker. That he also had some modified dummy grenades or the practice grenades that he was trying to modify to make them actually work. Let's read the article. It says, a wildfire that burned this article is from 6 days ago. The fires apparently happened this summer. A wildfire that burned 71,000 acres in southern Utah this summer led firefighters and other officials to uncover several explosive-filled bunkers hidden near makeshift cabins illegally built by a survivalist on public land. So, if you're going to spend all the money to go ahead and build yourself a survival cabin, even if it's only really cheaply done and a couple $100 or whatever, don't do it on public land. Find somebody who has a large plot of land that you can make a deal with them that you'll help them survive the apocalypse too with your supplies or whatever. Buy your own cheap plot of land, something like that. Rent out the rest of it for either logging or agriculture, something like that. And then just use your little plot for your survival bug out location. Interesting thing about this is later in the article it says that this guy had been doing this for like 30 years. So, I mean, for a long time he had basically gotten away with this. The pictures they have don't include the cabins because it was already burned down by the time they got there. But the bunker was fairly shoddy in that it is just, they don't show pictures inside of it. They probably never went in. But it's pretty much just, I'll include some pictures here in the video, but it's just a hole in the ground really that he bolstered with some concrete and maybe shored up a little bit with some wood at the entrance. But I don't really see the point of a bunker like that. I mean, if there's some kind of NBC situation, you can get minimal, I mean, you can get significant radiation shielding under the dirt, but you're not going to have any air filtration, things like that. It might even be in a way that water would flood in there, something like that. It doesn't have any kind of door blockage if someone is trying to raid your cabin or whatever, so they're just going to be able to go right down in there, smoke you out or something. So unless he was doing it simply for extra storage, which doesn't seem ridiculous, or doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, because it would be a lot more difficult to dig out a bunker like that than it would be to just increase the size of your little cabin. So I don't think this guy probably had the best idea of what he probably should be doing for his preparedness goals. My number one advice to people is always be realistic. Make a prepper mission statement like I did a podcast about ways back when, finding out exactly what you're trying to prepare for, and then see if these things even meet your requirement of something that you even need. Like, I think bunkers are awesome. I wouldn't mind having a totally closed off NBC bunker that I can survive a direct nuclear hit or something, but that's not really what I'm preparing for. I'm preparing to go 6 months without supplies from any outside source. And I don't need, something crazy like a huge bunker. I would like it, but it's just not part of the what I'm actually planning for. But this is still a pretty interesting story. So the firefighters were fighting the blaze. They started hearing popping sounds. They thought it was rocks exploding from the extreme heat, but they soon realized that it was ammunition after it continued for like 5 minutes. After the popping stopped, the firefighters hiked to the source of the sound and found a cabin that had been burned to the ground. Nearby, they found a bunker dug into the ground containing what appeared to be novelty hand grenades that had been altered by drilling out the bottom and plugging the holes with threaded galvanized pipe plugs. They also saw what appeared to be explosive powder, fuses, and ammunition. The bunker contained a large number of boxes and containers used as food storage, the release said. The firefighters took photos and informed law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. And after that, they wouldn't let the guys near it because they thought maybe there was explosives in there, so they only sent planes and helicopters to fight the fires from that point on. And then they sent a bomb squad in after the fire was done. Apparently they found a guy, contacted a person of interest. So not only was he dumb enough to build this on public land, he left something there that led them back to him. Some sort of paperwork, maybe fingerprints or something. I don't think he was probably really ever considered something like this happening. It was probably an incredibly remote location that no one ever goes there. And if they did, they just see a cabin, they think it's probably some Forest Service thing or something like that. So, pretty interesting story, honestly. I commend the guy's effort that he put into being prepared, but he definitely went about that the wrong way, doing it somewhere where something like this could happen. Not only exposing yourself to losing all of your equipment and gear and everything, either from theft, confiscation, or something like wildfires, but the even more significant part is you're subjecting yourself to legal ramifications, which is just not worth it. And as you can see, he said he'd been maintaining and building the structures up there for more than 30 years, and he hasn't had to use them, obviously. Had a significant quantity of black powder. So what he should have done, actually here it says, 2 of the cabins had been destroyed by the fire. They've been constructed by using concrete footings at the 4 corners of the cabin as anchors for the structure and were outfitted with a corrugated metal roof, metal stove, and chimney and some tools. The last cabin was fully intact, about 4 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 10 feet tall. So that's a fairly small cabin. That's a shed. 4 feet wide and 8 feet long. Interesting that he made it 10 feet tall instead of 10 feet long and 8 feet tall or something like that. Interesting. It's made of plywood, 2x4 beams secured to the concrete footings, 2 bunk beds, food and water storage, reading material, comfort items. So he didn't spend a lot of money on this. It'd be much better to, like I said, make a deal with somebody. Find someone who has a bunch of rural land. Tell them what you're about. Say that you're going to have a survival bunker on there somewhere. And if anything goes wrong and you actually need it, then you'll have some extra supplies for them too. And if you can't manage that, then try to buy your own place or just stock up those extra supplies at your place. Like I've talked about before, the chance that you'll actually need to bug out in that sense, like just go out and live in the woods, is very unlikely. And if you do have to leave, it'll be because of something like a fire, or some sort of localized disaster, fire, some kind of weather thing, some kind of terrorist attack or military problem, a riot, civil unrest, something like that. It would be localized to that area. The type of widespread, massive event that would cause you to want to run out into the woods and just live there, I can't really even imagine many realistic scenarios where that would make sense. Because even something like countrywide civil unrest, Mad Max scenario, like you're just going to run out into the woods and be there for, I mean, there's some situations that you could come up with that it might make sense, but you still have to travel there, and without having any issues with whatever's causing you to have to leave your place. It's much better to just have the supplies you need, a plan for leaving, and just being able to camp or something like that. Instead of building a cabin, if you have to get out to that cabin somehow, just have an ability to bring your things out there and then stay there. If you even were planning on using public land. Because if in certain situations that may not be a bad tertiary plan. If your primary plan is staying at your main location, secondary plan might be bugging out to a secondary location. And then if you are in a situation where everything's just gone to shit, you just need to get away from the zombie hordes, go out to your place where you would have put the cabin illegally on public land, and then just camp out. It doesn't sound like these cabins were super structures, to say the least. So certainly having like a rugged tent, you could stay out there for several months at least. There's not really much that you could survive in a cabin and that you couldn't survive in a tent in. I mean, certainly something like a bear or something, maybe you'd be better protected in a cabin versus a tent. But from people, it wouldn't really make much of a difference if they really were trying to get at you. And you would avoid any of these legal problems. You would still have to go out there anyway, because if you have the cabin in the middle of public land and you're not living out there, you have to make that journey when there's an event. So taking this stuff with you is not that big of a difference in your plan. It's going to make it a little more difficult, but it more than makes up for all the downsides that are present with just illegally making it on public or private land and just hoping that nothing goes wrong. I remember when I was at Fort Lewis for part of my RTC training, they had said that in some of the big areas where we do the 6 lanes and stuff, that people had built like shacks out there to cook meth in, which I thought was kind of crazy. Why would you go do it on a military base? I mean, yes, some of that stuff was fairly remote, but you still have to get in and out of there. It seemed like a crazy idea. It seems like there'd be some much more deserted area somewhere in Washington that you could do that. So let me know what you guys think about building crazy little survival bunkers on public land, and if that would ever be a scenario where that would be worth the risk and the resources that could have been spent on other things. Thought it was a funny story regardless. Definitely there are other preppers out there. They're among us. Some of them are building bunkers in public land. Talk to you guys later.